Hey guys, I'm Alex, and today we're going to be talking about society. And it's going to be the beginning of a much longer series about what makes up a society and what kinds of things we need to improve society. But the things we're going to talk about today are what are our baseline assumptions? What kinds of things do we need to structure society before we even start looking at like what are the parts that make up society, like what is culture, what is education, what is government. We're going to start at the very beginning saying what are the building blocks that we even fit this into, what is the structure that we put all of these subparts into. And so that's kind of going to be broken up into four parts. One is how we alleviate poverty and hunger. The next is how we make life better for everyone else. The third is to model it after realistic human behavior. And the last one is to make a society of interchangeable parts. So, to begin the conversation, the very first goal of this is to just reduce the number of people that are struggling on planet Earth. And that goes for people who are working jobs but not having enough money to pay for food, or are in war-ridden regions that don't have the ability to access food or shelter, or are constantly running for their lives. But it also goes to people in your local communities who are struggling day by day to escape things like alcoholism, or being under a threat of like landlords defaulting on them and not letting them continue to live in their residence, or even just having like very low quality of life where they're completely shut out from their families. So we're kind of looking at people who are struggling right now to meet that minimum threshold for what is an okay existence. And then once we've established a baseline that kind of prevents people from falling into that cycle, then we'll address the next half of society, which is the half that is doing pretty okay, but not necessarily living the most comfortable life or not really doing what they want to with their lives. Because we're in an age in technology where we can pretty much get whatever we want, in the sense that like we can make agricultural systems that are pretty much running themselves to get food on our tables. We can make education systems that make sure everyone gets educated. It's not like we necessarily have a lack of resources, it's that we need to figure out how to better use our resources. And so, to that end, we're going to be talking about, well, how do we take these people's lives who are okay and make it so that they're actually pursuing things they're really interested in? They're working jobs that they care about, they're earning like enough where they can start to buy luxury items, like things they really want, like a nice car, or if you want to like deck out your house, or you want to send your kid to a really preppy college, like those are decisions you really can only make if you're doing well and not just okay. So we're going to talk about, for everyone who's above that minimum threshold, how do we get the extra distance covered? Um, the third thing is talking about realistic human behavior. I think it's common to look at societies in the past where like you've seen novels like Brave New World or 1984, where they kind of take this idea of utopia and watch it fall apart in front of your very eyes. But that's the problem with the utopia, is we've built this like mechanized society for a bunch of perfect humans, in quotations, because realistically humans do not all act the same way, and it's not even like there's one right way to act. Like there's so many different ways you can respond to a situation. And we'll take it back to analogy from the previous episode, I'll say, where it's like you've gone and talked to your boss and you want something changed. Now your boss has a couple of options. They can yell at you because they're completely fed up with your work performance. They can just basically ignore you and change nothing because they're just like, they don't really care, part of the machine. They're not getting paid any extra to try and improve your quality of life for their own. They can take it with burning enthusiasm and they're like, yeah, we do need to make our workplace better and a happier environment for the people who work here. Or, you know, a slew of other options. But realistically, that's what's going to happen. You're not going to get the, okay, this needs to be done, so I'm going to make this change, and then everything is going to ripple out and it's going to be okay. We're not striving for either of those. We're looking at something that's more like people are going to be angry sometimes when you approach them. People are going to be sad, they're going to be happy, and they're going to react differently in all these situations. And they're also not looking out for everybody. More often than not, people are looking out for themselves, maybe a few family members or close friends, and sometimes not even themselves. So you kind of need a model that's very flexible for all the different types of people that it's going to contain. But I think that whatever the situation is, it's important that we sit down and we ask ourselves, okay, where would I be in this? Not just where should people be or where do I think I would want that other unknown person to be? Where would I be there? And every person that you talk to is going to have a different answer, but the average of those answers is going to work out to some model that starts to make sense for us as a whole. And the last part is interchangeability. Now, I think something we've all experienced in our lives is change. No matter how you dice it or slice it, things are going to change. You're going to move to a new house. You're going to have new teachers and friends. There's really nothing that stays absolutely constant throughout life. And that goes for society, that goes for engineering, that goes for art as well. You're not just going to be stuck in this state that is stable forever. And so every time something changes in your environment, you've got to change with it. And in the case of society, we're looking at something where we don't want this rigid structure where it's like we've built the perfect democracy and we've built the perfect economy to go with them. We've built the perfect education system, agricultural system, because the minute one of those things changes, like say we have a year of drought, all the crops die, now we're screwed because we relied on it being exactly that way forever for it to work. Or say people change and they're just like, I don't like this type of government anymore. Well, now we're screwed because the government breaks down and everything ripples out from underneath it. So instead what we want is something where you can change out the different parts of society and it's going to work just as well. So like, I need something where people can get food even if we've got different types of government in power. Like if we've got an autocracy or a tyranny or a democracy or an oligarchy, like people still need to be able to get food no matter who's in power or how they're being in power. And that's just like, that's something we need to approach from the beginning, is that we need to know that society is not just going to crumble because one piece is pulled out of the Jenga tower. So eventually this system will just not be suitable anymore. And so we don't know if that's going to be 10 years from now or 1,000 years from now. But it's the same thing with democracy in the US or with a monarchy in another country. You can't expect it to last forever, and so you kind of need to plan it around, let's be flexible about what parts this government or this society is going to be made out of, and be willing to change it when the will of the people changes. But even further, understand that it's not got to be my way or the highway, because eventually things change so much, the people change so much, that it hurts more than it helps to keep up tradition. And that's arguably one of the most important points of this, is if we expect something to last forever exactly the way it is, it will break. Everything breaks if you don't allow it to change. So that's something we're also going to be exploring throughout this whole series, is where is society right now? What can we change? And how do we keep changing so that we don't break along the way? So that's going to bring this video to a close, and I'm going to keep trying to post maybe weekly. And we're going to just build a model of what should society look like. I look forward to discussing with you guys in the comments. Give me your ideas, and it's been a pleasure talking with all of you. See you next week.